There we are. Hello, hello, and welcome to
Oh,
Jason's Thoughts. Welcome back, Tiffany.
thank
So,
you. It's good to be back. It's been a minute.
yes, it's actually, I went and checked, it's been 7 months.
Oh,
Shameful.
7 months of broken promises to return. But here we are.
You've broken my heart so many times, but it's not about the
Oh,
past, it's about the present, right?
that's right.
Yes. And my gift is having you on today. So I'm very, very excited to have you back.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Well, as the rules go with guests, the only rule I have is that really is there's no script, and you bring the topic. And so I want to pass the mic over to you for episode 83. What is the
Yeah.
topic that you want to talk about?
Episode 83 topic is change and managing change. I've been thinking about it a lot lately.
Hmm.
And one of the conundrums I have with change is it's always negative, right? People don't like change. Change is hard. You know, I think there's a lot to be said for how do you navigate that? How do you support yourself? How do you support other people? I think change where it starts and where it ends is sometimes very different places. So, you know, I value your opinion on that.
Yeah, as you know, I've gone through a lot of really big changes in my life.
Yeah.
And so just by default, I've been talking a lot about change and just some of my one-on-ones and just, dealing with it over the last couple of years. So I love that you brought this forward because I think there's lots of different perspective. Some people have literally lived in a box their entire life, right? And have never dealt with any change, whether it's personal or work or whatever. And then others are on the other side of the spectrum when they're constantly in change, right? So I definitely feel that it's going to be a great conversation to talk about.
And that's what I love about the conversation with you, right? Like we talked a little bit. I kind of reflected. I don't have a lot of big changes in my life, and you have a lot. So I think it'll
Hmm.
be interesting to play off, both views.
Yes, yes, indeed. I will say, once upon a time, I did live in a box, and I liked that little box because uh, it was comfortable and it was simple, and my day in and my day out didn't have a lot of change. And
Yeah,
so, definitely excited to unpack to the now where um, change is
everywhere.
almost, yeah, the consistent,
Yeah,
certainly for sure.
yeah.
Absolutely. So, where do you want to start? Let's, we talked about the topic, but where's the place to start with, where we can teach and share and ask?
Yeah, you know me, I like to summarize things. I like to put them into boxes. I like to organize information.
Yeah.
So when thinking about the topic of change, my mind kind of immediately went to how do we define change? And in that, I thought, what are the biggest factors that influence how we feel about change? And it kind of broke down into three different things for me. Like when I feel panicky about a change, why? Um,
Hmm.
I think number one for me, and probably everybody, is awareness.
Hmm.
Was it expected or was it unexpected? I think the next one for me, obviously, and again, probably everybody, is scope of change. Is it a
Yeah.
minor little thing? Or is it like fundamental? It's major. It impacts everything in my life or every day. And then lastly, I think the third thing that helps me kind of understand where does this change fall and how I'm going to tackle it is control. Do I have full control of the change or do I have little to no influence?
Ooh, yes. That's a really great place to start. Because I think the biggest um, for me at least, the one that that rings the biggest emotional bell is the control.
Yeah.
Um, Whether I have full control or not, if am I just along for the ride and navigating through that,
Yeah.
I think absolutely. And also scope of change, like minor versus major, like there's going to be little bumps, right? Like there's just going to be little things that are minor
Yeah.
inconvenience that could branch out to something bigger, but might feel small in the moment, which is kind of nice, like small,
Yeah.
subtle growth of change. And then there's major bombs that literally uh, hit you, and it's just like it's a 180 from where your plans were and what you were going to attack. Absolutely.
It's funny you talk about those two because I think where I landed, the number one thing for me is awareness,
Mm-hmm.
whether expected or unexpected, because I'm such a planner at heart.
Right. Right.
That, I can roll with whatever the scope is. At least I hope I can, right? So figure it out.
Yeah.
And control. I'll find ways to control it. I'm confident in that.
Yeah.
But it is the expected versus the unexpected. Obviously, the unexpected, where something happens that you didn't know was coming, that tends to send me into a spin more than any of the other scenarios.
Isn't that interesting? Because I think right there, I thought about just our differences in how we operate in life. And you talked about being a planner, and you know me, I'm just a go with the flow kind of guy. I'm unprepared, and I just adapt to the surroundings. So I think about the two differences. When it is a when you are a planner, that could be a
Yeah,
lot more difficult um, without the awareness, right? Because you're like, here's the path I'm going. This is everything that's happening, and then it's not expected, and that puts you out of your comfort zone. Whereas someone
yeah,
like me that's more adaptable in like, because I'm more of a on the fly kind of guy,
yeah,
um, I just go, oh, okay, boom, I'm just going to pivot. Um,
yeah.
Sometimes easier to get through some of the change potentially.
Yeah, I'm expecting that change already kind of on a trajectory of a curve. And for
Yeah.
me, it's like a straight 90-degree. Like I was headed that way. Now it's an abrupt stop. Now I got to go this way. It feels like I could scramble to pull things back and reevaluate more.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're going through change, like what are some Tiffany strategies to digest and get through that initial potential shock,
yeah.
when dealing with change?
So I reflected and I kind of asked myself, like, what kind of change have I had in my life? And knock on wood, I haven't had a lot of change that was unexpected or out of my control.
Hmm.
I've had
Hmm.
employment changes, and usually I'm choosing to make a change.
Yeah.
Um, I've had relationship changes, like we all have, and sometimes you're in control of that, sometimes you're not, or it's mutual, and all of that good stuff. Of course, I've moved a couple of times, and now you got to figure out, new neighborhood, new home. This isn't exactly how I want it. It's going to take me a while to get there. So I tried to figure out, without, this catastrophic change that I had to really kind of deal with, um, how do I approach it? And I think in the first kind of minutes, hours, days, whatever it takes for it to soak, I have to actively tell myself to take a minute.
Hmm.
You have to control your reactiveness. You got to tune into your feelings. What's your truth on this? Really kind of soul search. And sometimes I find for me, just remove myself from the situation for a moment. Time out. I got to take a break. I got to collect myself. The
Love it.
next thing that I do in that moment is gather info, figure
Hmm.
out what's important for me to know. I try to prioritize what's a need to know versus a want to know, really kind of organize as I go naturally into the next phase of fact finding and plotting my way through, what do I need to know what's important to me? That's what I've done. What about you?
Well, I was taking some notes because I love those. Um, just removing yourself from the situation, giving yourself that time to like absorb. I think too, in that I will say probably not necessarily a good thing where I go into panic mode, a little bit of that fight or flight. And that's why I wrote it down, yours to take a minute, because sometimes I get caught in the emotion, and then I gather other people into my emotions, which can actually cause a shitstorm a lot of times and cause more stress and anxiety. Um, so probably not the best thing. I also like that you put in like whatever time it takes you to absorb what you've heard in the change. I think is really good. Um, for me, I am always like the glass half full guy, right?
You are.
So yeah, so the second something is changing, I immediately look to try to look to the positives, right? I try to go, okay, I'm gonna go through this, and this is gonna be good because of X, Y, and Z, and I can spin it off the top really, really, really fast. Um, Even though that I might not truly believe it right off the moment, I can find positive things no matter what, and so I rest in that
Yeah.
versus go into more panic and more stress. You know, navigating through it. And also too, kind of like you, I'm a quick planner and quick to execute as well. Maybe not as good a plan on the planning side as you are, but I'll be like, okay, this is the problem. Okay, we're gonna fix it this way.
Yes.
And yeah, what? Okay, let's go. It starts actioning, which probably a little bit of a coping mechanism as well, to mask dealing with the actual absorbing the information, which is again why I added some notes for myself. So thank you for that.
I think it's where you and I finding a really good partnership and a balance. It's
Yeah.
actually makes I'm not that great for you, as I realize, you say that you're glass half full, and I immediately see myself as glass half empty. What could go wrong?
Mm.
Why is this bad? And so I think we've had really good, respectful conversations where you and I immediately connect, and where you might be positive helps me kind of change
Mm.
what I'm thinking about. Maybe, obviously trying to be respectful, not dragging you down into the negativity, but
Yeah.
challenging you on some of the considerations that we might want to have. I think you and I both come out of that a little bit better off.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I would fully agree because I think maybe that is where gathering together with different personalities and different types of individuals can also help, right?
Yeah.
Because I might shoot off and try to just create and build and execute on something, and you say, whoa, 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 let's pump the brakes, take a minute, let's absorb this, let's find out how we're moving forward,
Yeah.
absorb the feelings, and then
Build a
come to
huge plan in Excel, and you're like, no, we'll wing it. And I'm like, let's
yeah.
compromise. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go with Word.
Yeah.
Somewhere in between.
Perfect.
3
So,
points, we're good.
so we're already kind of halfway to one of the questions I had for you. Of course, I looked up change and did a little research because we're talking about the topic.
Yeah.
And time again, I saw the word mindset.
Yes.
Mindset, it matters. How do you control your mindset? How are you glass half full?
Oh yeah, so one of the quotes that has been a guiding principle for me with the mindset is the one where it's when you can't control what's happening, challenge yourself to control the way to respond to what's happening. That's where my power is. So I think it kind of goes into, your conversation about, or your point about control.
Yeah.
Um, I need to collect my thoughts. And again, I so quickly jump to the positive, and then I kind of rest there. But a lot of the times I will simply write things down, pros and cons, so that I give myself some time to not lie to myself, because there can be some negative things in there, and write those things down. It's like, okay, cons, cons, cons. But I'll quickly jump over to the pros and start building uh, more there, so that I can again have that glass half full mindset. But it really is like, you have to give yourself some time, right, to go through the emotions, because it's important, right?
Yeah.
To get into a growth mindset, or a positive mindset, or a move forward mindset, you do have to get through whatever your brain and your heart is telling you, one step at a time. So, if I'm sad, give myself space for sadness. If I'm scared, give myself space to reach out to someone, and just be able to be in a safe environment where I can share my fears. Anger, I don't necessarily like to put that on other people, because I think it's toxic. But I still give myself a spot for anger, if it's viable.
Yeah.
Um, and then from there, I've cleared out all of that, what could be negative side, or diminishing side, and just give myself positivity, and reinforce, and move forward, with the right mindset. Right mindset. Nothing's right or wrong, but
So I have a question, another question for you. I said I was going
Mhm.
to ask you more questions this time. I've often wondered, because you are so positive and roll with it, guy, is to what extent is that a mask? And that you don't really let everybody show what you're thinking, but you're curating the story, which is, especially in a
Yes.
professional setting, very, very smart.
Yes.
Uh, but do you often find, when you're alone in a room by yourself, that's actually you're a little panicked?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You nailed it. I mean, not a surprise, because you know me very well. It's absolutely a mask, and I try to put on a brave face. I'm a parent. I've been a leader for many many years, of people. Um, uh, I I try to be that glowing light in the darkness. Um, but it is absolutely a mask, and sometimes, like, we both went through a pandemic, right? And personal and work.
That's
I think through the pandemic is when I learned that I do have an opportunity to be a little bit more real in the space where it's like, because, like, hey, this is a shitstorm. The world is closed. Like, there
we're
is
all
nothing.
in it together,
We're
right?
all in it together. But being that positive beacon of light and glowing, and everything's gonna be all right, um, it's not. It's not always good, right? It's not always healthy. And so I think in that time, I kind of went, I am scared. The people I was leading, I'm trying to be this beacon of hope. And I'm like, no, no, no. I'm scared. I'm nervous about people in my
Yeah.
life dying. I'm worried about job security. I'm worried about my investments. Like, and so
Toilet paper going to be back in stock?
yeah, right. So, so yes, you got me square on. I think before that, I would very much like be in a closet, and get through the negative, and not show any of that, and then
Yeah.
just throw out the positive. But it's very much a mask, and I'd say, COVID's done a lot of negative things, but there was some positive things in it. And for me,
Yeah.
some of my growth was that. So
Yeah, I agree with everything you said around mindset. I would add making sure you've got your supporters nearby. Keep them on your side, keep them informed, engage them where you need them. And on the inverse, protect yourself from people that have that really ugly mindset. You know,
yeah,
they'll drag you into the pit of darkness.
yeah,
And while some of the things are saying may be true, it
yeah,
doesn't mean you need to go to the bottom of the pit with them. And once you get down there, it's really hard to dig yourself out. So
yeah,
protect space.
yeah. I love that. Yeah, I think um I think, like, what would you suggest when, like, so let's say you get the negative Nelly or the darkness, someone's trying to pull you down with them. Do you have any best practices, like, on how to pull yourself or take yourself away from that environment or that individual?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest thing to do is just not be around them. If you
Hmm.
can choose to not be around them. But then I think you need to set your own boundaries and make that clear, right? This is
Yeah,
how I feel about it. I'm still processing this stuff. You're not wrong here, here, here. But, you know, in order for me to see my way through this is the mindset path I'm on. And so, you know, maybe we need to agree on how we engage and how do we talk about the topic.
love
So,
that.
I
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely spot on. I probably need some work on setting some boundaries too, because I can be that person to connect with someone and just easier to absorb the negativity versus stop it, and then just build myself back up
yeah,
through positivity. But I love that. Yeah, setting boundaries is a great way to get out of that.
yeah. So once you got your right mindset on, how do you support other people that are going through change, whether you're in it with them or they're going
Hmm.
standing outside of it?
I think standing with them is so much easier, right? Because then you have that alignment that we're all in this together, and it's so much more real, because you're in the front lines with them, like,
Yeah,
and so I think that one's the easy one. Again, I think it's important to be vulnerable,
yeah,
but it's great to be positive with realism attached too, right? You don't want to be overly glowing and unrealistic, but I do feel
yeah,
like being a beacon of positivity is always something that is great from a leader, right? You need
yeah,
someone to kind of lead the way and lead the charge. So I
yeah,
think that one's easy. If you're not in the same predicament, or going through the same changes, I think the first place to be is empathy, or empathetic. Um, really listening, feeling, putting yourself in their shoes, and really listening to what they have to say. I think is the first start on how to help them navigate through change. What do you think?
I think the number one thing for me, and it's what I would hope for myself when I'm confiding in somebody, and so I'm going to really be mindful about how I show up for people, is grace.
Mm,
There are going to be moments of dumping and unloading and ugly thoughts, and you're going to be reactive and you're going to say things, and there's going to be drama in the early stages. And I think it's important for us to say, whatever you said yesterday doesn't matter, it's how you show up today. And I'm going to give you that audience today. We're going to have that conversation today. without feeling like, oh, I regret how I reacted and what I said. I mean, obviously there are some boundaries
Yeah.
to that, but I think, you know, in some of my moments of change, I know I haven't always been proud of how I've reacted and the things that I've said or gone on the defense, and maybe it wasn't necessarily placed with the right person or even necessary at all.
Mm,
Um, and when I've gotten grace back to say, yeah, I get it, change is hard, you were just digesting,
yeah.
that's when I've been the most thankful that somebody
Mm,
gets it. They let me have that moment.
that's amazing. That's really, really awesome.
Yeah.
Hopefully we all give a little bit of grace, right? As people navigate through that, because often we hold it against them, or judge, or, you know, no second chances, right? Of another emotion or another feeling or another perspective on things, or uh, the right mindset, right? It's too bad we've targeted you as that. So that's fantastic. Nice. So the last uh, thing I think I'd like to unpack is, how do we, or us, or you, become one of those people that's more welcome to change? Because, you know, you said at the beginning that you haven't actually really gone through a lot. So,
Yeah, you know, let's start by not following the usual. Change is hard. Everybody hates change. Let's throw those things out and try not to just invest in those notions that have been passed down to us.
yeah.
I think for me, because I'm a planner, the only way I can be good with change is if I plan for change. I expect,
Mm,
right? And so I'm always kind of thinking a few steps ahead. I mean, you know, your vision board, you
yeah.
envision what could change, and what are the scenarios, and actually what are the ways that it could change and benefit you. So if you do have a little bit of control, how do you be the influencer of change to go down that path?
Yeah.
I think it's also really important to welcome change by taking inventory of some of the changes you've had in the past where you
Mhm.
actually won. Maybe you didn't
Mm,
win as you wanted to win. It took a little bit longer and maybe it didn't show up how you first envisioned it, but you tell yourself, like, take a moment and think through, you know, what is the proof that change is good and how has that showed up for me? And then I think lastly, trust yourself
mm,
when it's not planned. um, just trust that you have everything you need to navigate through, whether it's that person to unload on that's going to
mm.
show you grace, or your friends that are going to say, I'm rolling up my sleeves, I'll be there on Friday, we're going to put a plan on a page and I can help you this way. Or it's just that you took a step away and took your safe space to digest it. Trust that you will find your way through it. It's, I guess, remove the remove the variability of it for me is key. What about
Mhm.
you?
Uh, oh, again, I gotta stop. I gotta pause that question and just go. I loved that point about reflection on the changes of your past that led to positive wins, right? Like, maybe, you know, in the moment you're deep in it, and you it's a negative spot, but you probably, even if, you were talking about this topic, it's like you probably look back and went, okay, actually I've gone through some changes. Putting yourself back there and finding those wins, because so often we go through change and then it's a distant memory and you don't even think about it. So I really, really love that point. Expecting change, I think, is hard. Good, easy if you're a planner, because you've already got potential safeguards for change. But
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, trusting yourself too, right? Like, no matter what type of person you are, I think you can reflect that you're going to get through it no matter what. Um, for me, I would say again, I came from very, very rigid beliefs, and change was not something I would ever embrace. Um, very stubborn, very, very stubborn. Um, but I would say that some things pushed me into change by, no control of myself. Some
Mhm.
things were a negotiation, or really an agreement to come to some consensus that need to move forward in X way. Um, and I think the more change that I put myself through, the better I became at embracing it. So it really is that, you know, the more change you go through, the more you're used to it, the more you embrace it, the more you're comfortable with it. Um, and so for me, there was no secret sauce to it or a cheat code for it. It's in reflection. It's because I went through so much of it. But coming from someone that was such a stick in the mud,
Yeah,
I am so grateful I have, because whether it
yeah,
was personal, in life, uh, the changes, although some of them were really, really hard, they put me in a better spot. Whether it was like work wise, there was always a lot of fear of like making the wrong step, or maybe not making the right career choice or path.
right.
And as you said, if you reflect back on that and you find some wins in there, it's like, oh yeah, that was really good. That was a really, really good thing. And even when change is negative, there's always a silver lining, I think, that you just might not have seen before.
Or if nothing else, you survived it.
Yeah,
You
that's
you
true.
know, you've got enough resilience for that, and if you could get through that, you can get through this.
Yeah, it's thick skin, right? Life has
Yeah,
got a, funny way of, throwing a lot of things at you, and sometimes when you least expect it. But in those moments, as hard as they may seem, they build you stronger, build your skin a little thicker. So
agreed. Agreed.
nice.
Well, I found you, like I started with, an invaluable partner for kind
Agreed.
of navigating some of the recent changes, and I'm always thankful to have
Yes.
you on the support team.
Yes, absolutely. Likewise, even speaking about, our time together in our careers over the last year and a half, um, I can say absolutely, like I was going through a complete career change in what I was doing, and you were there supporting me and helping me through my
Yep.
change, and so I appreciate you. Can never say enough about all the change that you've helped me navigate through. So I think when you talk about that person, um, that you can go to, is it's really invaluable.
Certainly a lot more fun to watch somebody else go through change, isn't it?
It sure is. Definitely seen enough people going through some changes in life. So,
Yeah,
and like to be supportive versus being the one that goes through it, for sure.
yeah,
So,
for sure.
okay, well, so I've got one last quote to kind of leave us on, that I feel is got positivity to it. And so, and I'm not sure if you've heard of the book of The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Mhm.
Funny little man, but very, very insightful. And he says this about change. He says, some changes look negative on the surface, but you will
Mhm.
soon realize that space is being created in your life for something new to emerge. That's what he talks about in changes. So, as much as maybe in that moment that change feels negative,
Yeah,
uh, just means that there's something bigger that's waiting for you on the other side of it,
bigger or better or both,
or both.
right?
Exactly.
That's awesome. That's a really, really good quote. Hard,
Yeah.
hard to have it in your heart when you're going through it, but maybe it's important to, really ingrain that in yourself so it's just there naturally when you get to a moment of change.
Absolutely. Well, Tiffany, so glad to have you back.
Thank
It,
you.
I'm not going to say it's been too long because we work together every day, and I love every minute of our daily. But joking aside, it was really nice to have you back on Jason's Thoughts. Anytime you want to come back, it's always an open door, and appreciate our time today unpacking what a lot of people are going through right now, which is big changes.
Thank you very much. I always enjoy the moment to reflect. So really, really enjoy these. I promise not another 7 months.
I won't hold you to it because there is no pressure in this game. It's just good conversation whenever you're up for it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, Tiff. It was a
Thank
joy as
you.
always.
Bye.